Carlos is there.
Ah, I see Carlos has joined. Let me see. There we go. Carlos has just joined.
Can you see me?
Not yet, Carlos. You got a black screen? Something covering your camera?
Yeah, I'll try to fix it.
Hi, Frank. Hi, Raul. Nicolia, is that right?
Nikolai.
Is it Nikolai? Super, thanks. Carlos, yes, we can see you now. Your camera's on.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Carlos.
Good afternoon, Hillary. How are you?
I'm good, eh? I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Excellent. Right, so I think I'm going to just let this just run for maybe 2 minutes while everyone's joining. Welcome to everyone that has joined. I hope all is well. We have done our fair amount of rehearsals on this, but this is a new platform for us, Demio. So forgive us if we get anything wrong regarding the protocols. Can everyone hear me at the moment? Can I just get in the chat box, if you can just indicate with a yes. I'm also not entirely sure if everyone's audio is on, or if I need to mute or unmute people. Okay, yes, thank you very much to everyone that's answering me there. Sound is perfect, wonderful. Thanks, Jerry. I see Noel's also joined us. Hi, Noel. Hi, Brian. Super. Javier. Okay, that's super. What are we on? It's 4:33 at the moment, and that's Eastern European time, GMT +2, which we had to calculate between the three of us. Right, I think we're actually good to go. So welcome everyone. It's actually really wonderful to have you. Such a great turnout. It looks like we've got over 120 people registered for this webinar, which is just absolutely fantastic. 47 have currently joined. Is that correct?
50.
We've got
51 actually.
51. Okay, wonderful. So that's probably going to increase over the next couple of minutes. Carlos, let me just introduce ourselves. So my name is Luke Davidson. I'm one of the co-founders of Macroorganics Europe, along with Carlos, who's doing the Southern Territories. I'm doing the Northern. And then we have our guest speaker, who is Hilary Murphy, who's one of the owners of Sorbology in the UK. And he's an incredibly experienced technical counselor to the turf sector in the UK. Well, not only the UK, but also also Ireland. And he's got a wonderful presentation to give us related to preparing for the winter, all the soil chemistry and biology that one needs to know. This is the first webinar of a 3-part series. So there'll be the follow-up webinar will be on Hillary, just correct me if I'm wrong, did we say the 4th of next month?
4th of October, yeah.
That's correct, yeah. So the 4th of October.
Monday, the 4th of October.
Yeah, perfect. I'll send an invitation out to everyone in that regard. In the meanwhile, I see Andrew, you're just saying my sound is terrible. My phone, is that a problem? Andrew, we can't hear you. So as long as everyone else is happy, then it's probably your phone. Keep in mind there will be a recording of the session which will be sent out to everyone that registered. But Andrew, yeah, if you can try and figure out how to get better sound quality from your phone, and obviously that would help you. So Carlos, just as we going through the slideshows, if you can just keep an eye on the chat box.
Yeah,
I want to give everyone in the audience, please, would you the more activity, the more correspondence we get, the better. So at any point, if you have a question, please type it in the chat box. Carlos will be keeping an eye on that, and he can just interrupt us and at a point that's advisable, and then we can answer your questions. There will be a Q&A at the end. I'm going to do a presentation on the company, on macroorganics, and then Hillary will go into his technical presentation, and following that we'll have a Q&A. So I'm just going to kick into it. How many people do we have online at the moment, Carlos?
50.
Oh, we've got 50 people. Okay, super.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm going to head straight into it. So macroorganics, we are all the products from macroorganics originate from South Africa, the western side of South Africa. The main constituents of the products, well, let me go through them all. Firstly, there's 5 main products: Oxyturf, Oxycure, Oxyflow, Slagebuster, and Oxyagri. We'll be going through them. Oxyturf is obviously for the turf sector. Oxycure and Slagebuster is for lakes and water treatments. Oxyflow is largely for irrigation systems and piping systems in general. And Oxyagri is for the horticulture and agricultural sector. All our products are certified for organic farming. And we have the certification with OF&G. It's a UK-based organic certifier. And Oxyturf, correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos, is the only one additionally that we've gotten the Kiwa Sativa certification for.
Yes, so far it's the only one, but
Okay.
we are just
In process.
We are just in process of getting the others as well.
Perfect.
Yep.
Right. We are all compliant with REACH, and that's an ongoing process. So all our products are at the moment they aren't required to be registered because of their biostimulant category. However, as at the end of next year, we are preparing for the biostimulant registrations as well, and equally with fertilization registrations. So within the parameters of the law and regulation, we meet all those requirements. Of course, all documentation in this regard can be requested of us. This is our toxicology report, and we have at the bottom left, you can see that's the germination score, and then the inhibiting materials score. So one, germination is a soil toxicology report of which we score 100%, and inhibiting materials, there were none detectable, and that's at a dilution rate of 1:24. So the reason why I'm showing this to you is really to show that there is 0 toxins, and it's completely healthy for your soil biology and microbial activity, which is obviously very, very important when applying it to your soil conditioning program. The products are patented. This is the patent number if you ever want to look it up, and the ingredients to the main constituents of the product are these 5 plant groups, Eucalyptus, Pokea, Copperotus, Aloe, and Sutherlandia. Yeah. Right. So from Oxyturf, and that's really what this webinar presentation is all about. Oxyturf is an aerobic microbe activator. It also, along with that, releases oxygen. It has a slow release capability. Most of the release happens in the first 48 hours, and then it continues for a further 7 days. This is an approximate value. It's also relative to the amount of bacterial activity that is in the soil and the decomposition of carbon compounds. It's why one would want to use Oxyturf for those. I mean, it might be obvious to some, but for those of you that would like to look at this for the first time, it's really about decompacting your soil. It unblocks the pores, cleans the soil profile and the root systems. So just generally improving percolation and oxygen availability. It's turning what would be an anaerobic environment to an aerobic environment. And really what that is it's stimulating aerobic bacteria work a lot faster than aerobic bacteria. So with having that oxygen as fuel, they're able to break down and metabolize carbon compounds, and for instance, in turf, the thatch a lot faster. So this will reduce that organic buildup in thatch, and obviously, like in the sulfur-prone areas of black layer, where oxygen becomes now more readily available, and the sludge is getting destructured and broken down, then your black layer will pass through the soil profile, and the system will be cleaned out. With this availability of oxygen, of course, your nutrient uptake and fertilization uptake is improved quite dramatically. In fact, very often one will notice a greening after the treatment of Oxyturf. The application rate is 20 liters per hectare. This is an average application rate on a monthly basis, but can certainly be treated on a bi-weekly basis, so every 2 weeks. And then under extreme conditions or conditions where one needs a faster result, 40 liters per hectare, 30 liters per hectare is also been used by a number of our customers. Okay, black layer for, really what we're doing with black layer. I mean, this is just an explanation to what black layer is. Black layer favors sand-based root zones. It appears as a black foul-smelling continuous and discontinuous subsurface layer. Deposits of metal sulfides, which form when hydrogen sulfide gas reacts with metals. And for hydrogen sulfide to be released, the root zone conditions must favor the growth of sulfur-reducing bacteria, which requires water, so very moist soil profiles, and a lot of organic matter, so largely thatch, and of course, very low oxygen levels. So this is really what Oxyturf combats. So the causation then therefore would be poor aeration, porosity, compaction, excessive irrigation, etc. So Oxyturf then, it activates the aerobic microbes in the soil profile, and they increase the slow release oxygen availability, and therefore would decompact the soil profile, unblock the pores, improve percolation, improve air and water flow. Here are some pictures, some before and afters. This is a 2-month gap between the two on a green in South Africa, where you can quite clearly see the black passing through the profile. And here, same thing again. Again, with thatch, it's a similar process. You've obviously got a lot of cuttings on a golf course, particularly the greens. And what we need with this is increased metabolic rate of the bacteria. So we need the bacteria to break down the thatch or the organic matter faster than it's being plugged into the soil profile. So by introducing and activating robust and active aerobic bacteria, this is obviously combated. Here you can see the thatch just in the top layer there, and just very quickly, 2 month period, the thatch has just been completely reduced. Again, here, this is actually the Dubai Sevens Rugby Stadium. Right, over here, I'm going to talk to you just quickly about the enzyme. A very special enzyme in the solution works within these parameters at best. So we have a temperature range on the right and on the left, a pH range. So Oxyturf, the product, works best in a pH of, you can see here, you could possibly go slightly below 5, but generally speaking, we're looking at a pH range of 5 to almost 8, so about 7.8. But the optimal area would be 5.5 to 7.5, where the product works best and the environment in which it works best. This is largely due to, it's a very simple study, and it's related to the plants and the environment that the plants grow in their natural habitat. Equally, the temperatures can go down to as low as really, so this is the 25 degrees, and this is centigrade, that little dot over there. And this is 12.5. And it's still active all the way down. So you can go, there's still activity at 5. It's just, the closer you get to 0, obviously with the same with all bacteria, activity is reduced substantially. So again, your optimal area for temperature is below 40 and above 5 degrees. Having said that, we actually, Hillary will be able to speak for this as well. In the winter period, with the insulation of snow, Oxyturf has actually been a wonderful treatment to use prior to knowing snow's coming, to make sure that there's a constant flow of activated bacteria and oxygen. What that does, when the snow is on top of the soil, there's an insulation, and the ground actually stays warmer. And with the introduction of Oxyturf prior to snowfall, it really helps for when the snow starts to melt, and in alleviating that pressure, that sort of disease pressure, and moisture porosity, to get the water flowing through the profile. And this actually is a customer. I'm just going to go through a couple of references here. This is a customer where exactly that happened. He said after rain had stopped, it took 24 hours for the areas applied with Oxyturf to completely drain the water, and areas without Oxyturf, it took 3 to 4 days to drain. This is where they had really large rainfall in the beginning of the year, Storm Christopher. This is with Mick Buckley. Again, this is just a treatment and showing some of the differences before and after. You can see he's been holotining here. Again, here, this may be a better one to show some of the black layer. This is on Photo Island, Sean McDonald, a golf course manager, a greenkeeper. Really just showing wonderful results with cleaning the profile in a very short period of time. This is where, the resistance and immunity has been improved on the turf. So the product isn't used as a control for disease, but it's certainly suppresses disease because of the immunity strength that's given to turf. So the just general plant health and defense and immunity is improved. And as you can see here, the fusarium is just dried up and cleaned up. We have a number of other products. Oxyagri is used in the horticulture sector and agricultural sector. This has also got an area, it could also be used in used for fairway, sorry. So when you're using sort of larger spaces of ground, Oxyagri is maybe something to look at, particularly with thatch control. Again, it's used for similar approach. It's the same base product. So again, it's used to activate aerobic microbes. It's increasing the dissolved oxygen availability, improved root absorption for nutrients, and you'll get the root volume increasing and better plant immunity and resistance. What this shows you over here is the increased dissolved oxygen over time. This is just an hour-and-a-half spreadsheet here, but we have a control, a test 1 and test 2. We're using 165 parts per million and 330 parts per million. Test 1 will be the 165. The control is at 0. There was 0 oxygen availability. This was actually the water taken from the canals of the Ajax Football Club field. And the reason why the control actually goes up is because we had them in glasses, and you use a dissolved oxygen probe, which you have to stir the water. So there's, even in the control, there was an increased rate of oxygen. But what you can see really is that depending and proportionate to the amount going into the water or how much treatment is used, there's an increased rate of dissolved oxygen availability. Here are some pictures. This is again, this is actually Oxyturf's been used, and really what you see here, it was used on the right hand side. It's a product called ProPlant, and on the left it's Oxyturf, and they were getting a lot of root damage due to disease and just general plant health issues. And what you can see is just the improved vigor on this plant over here. The leaves are all pointing up strong, the stems are strong, there's a lot more root growth, and this was compared to the, you can see it's substantially less, and equally the plant health not as good. On the right, you can again see the left-hand side is just increased root growth, and on the right, this would be the control. Sorry, did I hear?
Yeah, I was just remembering you, Luke, that well, this example that you're giving is something that well is within the other product is one of the most used products or referential products in the industry for that kind of disease.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I just was suddenly sensitive to, I don't necessarily want to say anything bad about the product. I think it's quite a reputable product. It was just for this particular circumstance, Oxyturf outperformed it. Right, so this is a problem with Pythium, which also we experience in the turf sector quite often. Now, what you see on the well, basically everything outside of this quadrant. So the quadrant top right hand corner is treated with Oxyagri, and you can see the density of plant. And you know what, this is actually a video, but I see it hasn't when I uploaded it, it has turned it into a picture as opposed to a video, so I can't actually show you the content, unfortunately. But basically what's happened is it dried up the Pythium, controlled it, so there was no further spreading of the Pythium, and even the plants that were attacked, grossly attacked by the Pythium or the fungi, were able to still spring shoots and continue to grow quite healthily following treatment. Here, this is a bacteria as well, Erwinia. And, you know, Erwinia grows in very moist environments. And what we have here really is these potted plants. This is all aloe plants, as you will have noticed. So they all are being attacked here. And what it does is it kind of kills the roots, which you can, you know, see these leaves are starting to fall off, and the general plant health has been quite dramatically destroyed. What we've done here is we did a higher concentration than what we would usually. It's a 2.5% concentration of oxyagri in. For the likes in the turf sector, what you would do is on your backpack put a 2.5. You can even increase it to 5% solution, and do direct sprays on particular areas that are troublesome there, where you want to increase that aerobic environment, boost the plant health, and suppress disease. You can do a direct application, and this is what you can see 4 weeks later: complete recovery of the plant, and everything that was attacked by the bacteria has dried up, which you can see everywhere else. But the general color as well, if you see, this is a yellower plant, weaker. Here we've got a very strong, very, very healthy plant. This is one of it's the biggest succulent grower in the Netherlands. It's a company called Bunnik, and they are, yeah, probably our biggest fans. Right, I see my time is coming to an end, and I really want to pass it on to Hillary. So I'm going to try and go a little bit faster here. This video, let me see if the stop sharing. It is such a pity. I really wanted to show you this. Sorry about that. I'm not actually able to, but this would show you how the structure of sludge and hard sludge, which is and compacted soil, breaks down. It's breaking down the structure as opposed to harming, burning, oxidizing the compounds itself. So a good example is you can actually take a plant, so take a grass cutting, if it's clean, you can put it directly into our product and it will have no negative effect whatsoever. Whereas as soon as you have bacteria available or broken cell walls, then suddenly you'll get activity, which is quite a phenomenal thing, which separates us from many other chemical based products. Another area that it can be used and is being used is for spraying and drying up algae. It's a fantastic product. If you can, like I say, put a backpack on, make a 5% solution, spray it directly to the turf, and you get wonderful drying up and aeration and really robust bacteria growing in this top layer, which in golf courses where you've got these slippery and slidey bridges, it's a fantastic tool because, of course, everything that drops through into rivers or waterbeds is completely healthy for the water below, healthy for aquatic life, and any other plant life in the water. I'm sorry for these videos. Unfortunately, I can't show them, but that's fine. Actually, I think I've said enough. So it's really good for OxyFlow. It just dramatically improves all of this sludge that you can see in this pipe flow, which is hard sludge, which golf course in South Africa has had for years and years, we're going to replace their entire system. They put a 1% solution in the pipeline, left it for 24 hours. 24 hours later, they were able to spray it completely out. The whole system was clean, and everywhere where the water went, the soil flourished. So it's just a fantastic product to maintain healthy water quality and unblocked irrigation systems. On golf courses, many of you have, algae and eutrophic water systems in your lakes, and our products are just absolutely fantastic in turning those dams from eutrophic algae-driven lakes into something that's really, really crystal clear. Here's a couple of before and afters. We're having a lot of success as well with the reserve water dams and fire dams for in the Netherlands here, and it's a two-part solution where you use the actual plant fibers that we use. So it's called Sludge Buster, which is a bucket of the plant fibers, and we culture the bacteria inside of it. And then the Oxyturf, which is the liquid, and we apply those to the water, and it's just increases the metabolic rate of the sludge and the underlayer, turning it aerobic, and reducing the feed for algae, particularly nitrogen. Again, some lovely before and afters. This is just showing you a chemical composition of what one can expect. There was this is at the Atlantic Beach Irrigation Water Test. So what we have here is following this drought, the treatment began over here, and there you can see literally a reduction in all components at the end, from your conductivity, so that's the salt content 4.95 to 2.35. Let's go to the total dissolved salts, 4,000 down to 1,500. Suspended solids, ammonia. So ammonia is also quite an important one, 97 down to 0.19. Chemical oxygen demand, which is, I think, the biggest or most important parameter when testing for water quality, 182 down to 43. Perfect. We are also the suppliers of kelp, and we'll be having a Oxyturf inclusive of some kelp in the very near future. That's to come. Right. That's my introduction. Before I pass it on to Hillary, would anyone like to ask a question on what I've just said?
Look, can you listen?
I can hear you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? I hope so.
Yeah.
We've got here Andrew asking if Oxyturf has any effects on positive effects, I mean, on sodium composition in the soil.
So it certainly does. I mean, what I could show you here with salts, there's a reduction. This is in a water body, not actually soil, not soil. So if you look at the SAR, which is also related to salt, if you look at the conductivity, that's electrical conductivity, that's also related to salt. Both of those parameters reduced over the period. What also happens, and I think this is maybe, this is probably the most important when it comes to soil, is your porosity and your through flow. So because of your porosity is improving and your drainage is improving, a lot of your salt can actually wash through the system and isn't collecting and being held up in that compacted profile. So I believe that would be the best area where salt is improved. And of course, you need to monitor your water quality and your whatever additives you're putting in. You want to stay away from salts just in general. Salt in our book is a no-go word. So prevent yourself from using salts as much as possible. But besides that, yes, you're going to get some improved and reduced salt content in the profile. Is there something else, Carlos?
Yeah, well, there's here Jerry asking if it can be used on drainage lines, especially where the problems arise with iron blocking up the pipe.
Yes, absolutely. That's where the Oxyflow would come into play. It's a brilliant product for exactly that. If you're having iron deposits, calcium deposits, just a biofilm buildup, use Oxyflow. It's a brilliant product, and it's completely healthy for all environments that it lands up in. So if it's getting drained into a water system, a river, anything like that, it's very, very healthy downstream, and incredibly effective in exactly what you're asking about. So yes.
Also, Jacqueline is asking, where is Oxyturf available in the European Union? And I can answer that. It's available in all countries of the European Union. You can contact us through hello-macroorganics.eu, and basically we will direct you to our distributors in that specific country.
Perfect. Hillary?
Yes, sir.
You can go straight on to share materials. At the bottom, I can do it for you actually. Let me just do it for you.
Please.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Right, and you are capable of doing, can you see the left and right button there so you can move through?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I've got them.
Okay, this is Hilary Murphy. He's our distributor for the UK and a technical consultant as well. Years and years of experience. He's of the best in the industry from a counseling perspective, and certainly a forward thinker when it comes to soil biology and thinking of the future and sticking to the organic side of managing turf and soil biology. So take it away, Hillary.
Thank you, Luke, for that introduction, and thank you for laying such a good foundation with what you presented today. I just want to correct you very quickly. Sometimes there is a misconception that everything's organic. Everything is biological, more biological than organic. Yes, sometimes we do have to use part organics. So our emphasis is on biology, but today I'm going to give you some background into chemistry, because what we'd like to introduce you to is the world of soil chemistry and how chemistry impacts on biology. So there is this wonderful synergy, there's this wonderful relationship between chemistry and biology in the soils. And that's going to be our emphasis. And today, in fact, is the forerunner for the 4th of October, because the 4th of October is really going to be something that's going to impact on going into the winter, preparing for the winter, and combining chemistry and biology to its best effect. So for those who are taking notes, I would say stop, because there is going to be a recording. But what I would encourage you to do is write down any new terminology, any new word that you're hearing for the first time, so that you become very familiar with the language that is used in agronomy, the language that's used in soil chemistry. And here we have just some headings of what we're going to be looking at today. And I'm not going to go through them because we'll be covering them as we go forward. Right. One of the most important aspects of chemistry is to get an understanding of ions. What are ions? Ions are found in the soil, and they are basically mineral salts that are in solution. But we go further. They are all charged. They all either have a positive or a negative charge. Now, in trying to remember the difference between an ion, between the ions, between a cation and an anion, what you need to picture in your mind, as I have in front of you now, a battery. And the cathode is the negative side of the battery, negative part of the battery, the negative terminal, and the anode is the positive terminal, as you know. So in nature, we know that a positive will be attracted to a negative, and a negative will be attracted to an anode. So the name of the ion, if you just remember this, the name of the ion is known by which cathode attracts it. So positive ions are drawn to the negative cathode, and negative anions are drawn to the positive anode. If you keep that in the back of your mind, then all the rest will fall into place. Right, here's just two lists of the most popular cations. How are we doing time? I'm just monitoring. I'm not going to go through all of them because they're familiar to you. What just needs to be highlighted, though, is that ammonium with a single charge is a very weak cation. And through the course of today, I want you to look out for the Oxyturf logos. When you see the Oxyturf logo appear on the screen, I want you to look even more bright-eyed and tune in, because that is the time when there'll be a reference made to the role that biology plays in chemistry. So we're all familiar with ammonium, potassium. Potassium's got also a weak cation, a single charge. Calcium, which is a bivalent ion, has a double charge, and this will become more important and more relevant as we move further on with this training course. And then on the anion side, we've got the sulfates, we've got the boron, we've got the moly, we've got phosphorus, and we've got nitrates. So bear that in mind now when we discuss the utilization of different fertilizers. Okay, so the availability of nutrients comes through the addition of water. So water is a key element in transporting nutrients into the plant. And right at the end of the presentation, we'll cover osmosis and osmotic potential, and you'll see how it all fits together. So if something is soluble, it is immediately available. If something is exchangeable, that is generally a nutrient which bonds to the soil particles, generally the clay or humus colloids. And something that is exchangeable is something that is available for a longer period in the soil profile. Total is generally referred to something which is more complex. So it has the ability to be taken up as a foliar. It has the ability to be taken up through the soil, and generally it is something which will remain for a longer period in the soil. But thank God we have Oxyturf, and we have my little friends, the critters. The critters represent the whole biological spectrum of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and the friendly nematodes. The nematodes which keep your soils clean and help create pore spaces. So we'll expand on these now as we continue on. What did I do? Sorry. what did I do? Okay, thank you, wrong one. So as I said, we'll expand on these as we carry on this program. So soluble fertilizers, easily washed from the root zone, even if they have a positive charge. And we'll get into that a little bit further on. Exchangeable, these are the most reliable forms of nutrients, because these nutrients can bind or be bound or adsorbed, depending on whether it's an anion or cation. They can be bound to clay colloids. Mineral, this is getting now into soil amelioration, and this is making use of things like gypsum, dolomitic lime, calcium carbonate, or even our friendly zeolites. So these release minerals over a very long period and generally take time to break down. But they are there for multiple reasons, more than just as a source of nutrition, as you'll see later as we get to discuss cationic exchange capacity. There we go. And here we start with the real business. Opposites attract. They say even with human beings, many a marriage is made up of people with different characters and natures. But this is even more so in the soil. And this is how a lot of nutrient is held within the soil profile. I'm not going to go back, but I did miss a trick there with the Oxyturf logo, but there'll be plenty more references about that as we proceed and as we meet again on the 4th of October. So a lot of nutrients are cations, and where do they move to? They move to the negative charged cathode. And what else is negatively charged in our soil chemistry environment? Clay and humus are all negatively charged. So what would they be doing? They would be attracting these cations. And we know that a soil colloid is a particle of clay that has been broken down to the point that it can't be broken down any further. Let's repeat that. A soil colloid is a particle of clay that has been broken down to the point that it cannot be broken down any further. And we know that clay has colloids, and we know that humus has colloids, but that the colloids of humus have 3 times the ability to attract the cations. So we need to bear that in mind. Those of you who have been in greenkeeping long enough will know that as far back as 10, 15 years ago, people were using sand dressings that had a fair amount of humus in them. And they were called 70-30s or 80-20s. I know one of my customers was so scared to move away from it that he ended up eventually going to a 95-5 just to retain that little bit of humus to improve the cationic exchange and to improve the attraction. So let's moving on. You've got your clay colloid here, and you can see negatively charged that it is attracting calcium, potassium, magnesium, and hydrogen. We'll get to hydrogen a little bit later. That's the hydrogen ion. That's the one that takes a little bit of extra training on. But as we all know, so important for controlling the pH in your soil profile. All right, they are held in the soil by negatively charged particles. Okay, and we all know that an organic medium has a greater ability to hold on to those charges. Okay, we better speed up a little bit here. Now we get down to the real business of today, and we could almost have had a Oxyturf logo here as well, but because I didn't refer to the last one, I'll take the opportunity here. The ability of the soil to hold onto positively charged nutrient ions. So that's what CEC is all about. That's the first part of CEC. The ability of the soil to hold on to positively charged nutrient ions. It is also the ability of the soil to release positively charged nutrient ions. So picture that in your mind, that these two reactions are occurring at all the time, and they're recurring at the same time and at the same rate, except where you have a bivalent ion, and a bivalent ion has a double charge, and the main contenders are calcium and magnesium, because they are required in large amounts. Reading some literature during the week, I was horrified to see that calcium and magnesium were referred to as minor nutrients. That is not true. It fits into the macro elements because it's required in large amounts, just as sulfur is. But sulfur is an anion, it's negatively charged, so you don't see it being held here in this clay humus complex. The CEC is quantified by the unit of milligram equivalent, and you will see that on all your soil analysis. So moving on, and as I said, biology can increase and decrease this cationic exchange capacity. And as the slide says, the ability of the soil to both hold on to and release, biology powered by oxygen, powered by Oxyturf, can actually speed up this process. And that was Luke, that is what Luke was referring to when he was speaking about the greening up after the use of Oxyturf, especially into a heavy soil where a lot of nutrient is being held in the clay colloid. And with the activity of the microbes, that nutrient is released at the time of applying Oxyturf, because it literally puts the biology into a spin. They go into a bit of a frenzy and a bit of activity. So let's just move on here. Right, what causes this exchange of cations to occur? This is brought upon by uptake of nutrients, and as plants take up nutrients, hydrogen ions are released. So hydrogen ions, also negatively charged, are released when you have the uptake of any of the nutrients, especially the cations. And these hydrogen ions then force the pH of the root zone down. They decrease the pH. The increasing concentrations of hydrogen ions knock other cations off their exchange sites, making them available as nutrients. So think for yourself now. It's all about exchange. It's all about exchange. So a calcium is taken up by the plant. Calcium, we know, is a great contributor to increasing pH. If that's taken up by the plant, the hydrogen ion replaces it, and so we get the drop in pH. And that will come a little bit more evident as we carry on.
If I can ask a question.
Yes.
When you said replaces it, are you saying it's exchanged? So are you saying it's exchanged by the root, by the exudates from the root and the bacteria exchanging the trace elements with the root, or is it happening because of this, because of the polarity difference?
It's all about positive and negative charges. And fortunately, that humus, we'll just use the word humus now to speed things up, and colloids are negatively charged. So we were very fortunate that nature has designed soils like it. The exchange occurs on the colloid itself.
And the colloid is that very small clay particle.
Calcium, yeah. So this calcium is bound to that clay colloid. It is now taken up by the plant and it gets replaced by the hydrogen. And that is your cationic exchange.
And where did the hydrogen come from?
So remember the hydrogen is in the soil from water, H2O. You're putting water into the soil, and that oxygen molecule gets separated and then it rests. So what you've got to remember, the ability of the soil to release positively charged nutrient ions and the ability of the soil to hold on to. So maybe that should have been done in two different ways, but you've got to remember it's the ability to release and to hold. That is your cationic exchange. If you bear that in mind, the rest of it fits into place. Okay, what increases cationic exchange capacity? And here too, we could have stuck a Oxyturf logo. So I'm going to speed things up now because I see we're running short of time. In natural soils, you've got a good cationic exchange capacity. I'm talking about virgin soils, natural, in woodland conditions. Your cationic exchange is always healthy. In organic matter, you have a good CEC. In humus, you have a good CEC. In clay particles, you have a very good CEC. But in sand-based root zones, I see we've got Portuguese and Spanish visitors today to our meeting, where they've got very sand-based greens, especially on the coastal areas. There's nothing to hang on to. There's nothing to hang on to the nutrition, and there's very low CECs in those sand-based greens. We also have some Irish visitors. They've introduced a sand to their greens for the last 10 or 12 years. And then again, in the UK, a lot of sand dressing is applied to greens. So you eventually end up with the old push-up greens, the old soil-based greens being covered in sand at the top. And as I said, some 10, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, people moved away from dressings that had humus in them. Okay, how can we increase CEC? Right, this is a bit of a punt for my own company. We have a product called Nutrisorb, probably one of the best volcanic rock remedies on the market. We won't go into it now. You can introduce organic acids of the like of humic and fulvic. You can introduce organic foods, and here we give the best biological punt ever. Our little critters, they hold nutrition, especially ammonium, NH4, in their bodies. And to survive, they eat each other. So we as very scientific, as a very scientific race, we harvest the energy that we gain when one critter eats another critter. Because as it eats another critter, it's releasing more NH4 and it's releasing carbon at the same time. And that we'll go into in detail on the 4th of October. So some cations are basic. Now, basic is a term referred to a product being alkaline. And this is where you get base saturation coming in. As I said, take down the terminology. you can always go and study base saturation a little bit deeper. It's a fascinating subject. My company is totally committed to it. It's been around since 1920, and for that reason, it's tried, tested, and proven. There would be an argument coming from the East that it's not doable or workable in sand-based greens, but we are busy proving that wrong as we introduce base saturation in our applications. So we have potassium with its single charge, magnesium with its bivalency, with its double charge, calcium. These are all alkaline, and their alkalinity impacts upon your soil chemistry, because obviously if we're working with just biology, we would prefer the pH to be lower. We would prefer the pH to be around about 6.2 to 6.5, which fits beautifully into the Oxyturf range. Moving on, we come to our old favorite, the hydrogen ion. I might have to go to my notes here. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, the hydrogen ion is also attracted to the clay colloids, and as a nutrient is taken up by the plant, the hydrogen ion will gladly take its place on that site on the clay colloid. So what we need to look at here now is which are the elements that do reduce the pH, which are acid cations. I doubt too many of you in Europe and in the UK and Ireland would have too much problem from aluminium. If you are, then you have really acidified your root zone far too much, because aluminium is generally only picked up in very, very low pH soils. In fact, there are soils that have literally been robbed, raped, abused, whatever word you want to describe it. I see I've caught up time, so I can go back to hydrogen ions. Hydrogen ions are added to the soil by the formation of organic acids. When percolating water moves through the organic and surface mineral horizons, hydrogen ions are removed from the soil by leaching or by the addition of bases which neutralize the hydrogen ions. So the bases would be the elements that we looked at here, which are alkaline, where they've escaped me. There they are, potassium, magnesium, and calcium, but primarily calcium, because as we all know, calcium is the trucker of all other elements. And in my last 6 years in amenity turf, I have been horrified to see the amount of calcium uptake. And this proves a couple of things. This proves that people are overfeeding, and because in turf the clippings are removed, at the same time you are taking off calcium. And I've got a staggering figure for you, and that is that it's been calculated that in dry weight of turf, of grass, that you remove from a green in a year is as much as a ton. So that helps you recalculate how much calcium you're removing when you go and look at your base sat percentages, which we are coming to right now. So let's go along here and get back to this. So the hydrogen ion, as I've just said, are removed from the soil by leaching or by the addition of bases which neutralize the hydrogen ions. Does soil have hydrogen? Of course it does. Aluminium ions contribute to soil acidity through their tendency to hydrolyze. The hydrogen ions released give a very low pH value in the soil solution and are a major source of hydrogen in most very acidic soils.
We've just got a quick
Then
question.
we come to our old favorite,
by Aidan. He's asking, given Oxyturf decomposes carbon compounds, is it not detrimental then to the humus we refer to support biological activity in the soils and sands?
Okay, thank you, Aidan. A great thinker Aidan is. I know him very well. And this type of question is part of his psyche. Aidan, I'm going to cover that a little bit later. We're nearly there. Let me just proceed, and I will cover that question when we have the relative slides so that everybody else can join in. But thank you, Luke. So here we've got two forms of iron, the ferric and the ferrous, and both are very acidic, and both can be used to knock off the different positive cations off the clay colloids. Ion exchange sites in soil are finite, and different nutrients also influence the physical properties of the soil in different ways. So, the ratios of different major exchangeable nutrients in the soil are very important. Hence, the importance of base saturation. So what I might do, Luke, because this is so important and people struggle with this, I'm watching the time here as well, and I'm halfway through my talk and I don't have half the time available. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. Ion exchange sites in the soil are finite. What does that mean? That means once you've established your base sat, it is quite difficult to correct it, but not impossible. And this is where we get opposition from those who are not happy with us using base sats in golf greens. They're quite happy for us to use them in a farming environment, but they're not comfortable for us to use them in golf greens. And I'm going to be a little bit blunt here because I'm approaching my seniority in life. I can take advantage of that and say that anybody who's not prepared to look at base saturation has a hidden agenda. And there it is. I put it out there and it'll be recorded. So let's move on to base saturation and why it's so important. As I said earlier, it goes back to 1920s where Dr. William Albrecht introduced it. There's been a number of people who've modified it and improved upon it, but the real original base saturation studies started with that far back. And what it's all about is it's all about ratios. And if we get to it, we might miss it. That's the last slide. There is a trick question, and I'm giving you a clue right now about it. The percentage of CEC that a particular alkaline cation occupies. So these base sat, these alkaline cations are what determine base sat. Sorry, I've got my daughter's cat's just visiting. Okay, so in a golf root zone, and this is also arguable, this is also debatable, but this is what we found works for us. These are ratios. You see the percentage behind it. And you see that when you go through and start studying base saturation, you will see that the ratios of calcium and magnesium come into effect. So the most important ones for me is that calcium-magnesium ratio. We've been very fortunate to be working in Southern Ireland, and unfortunately they work with a very, very high soil pH for their dressings, and this soil pH impacts heavily on their calcium percentages, and unfortunately that calcium is just not available to the plant. So we've got to do everything in our power to reduce that calcium by introducing the hydrogen ions, and that's the only way we can do it. But anyway, these are the percentages. So calcium just greater than 65%, magnesium in between 5 and 15, but personally I'd like it up at 15. I'd like all of these to be the maxes. Let's run on. When you achieve this, when you achieve those ratios in your soils, you're also achieving optimum nutrient availability. Okay? Because base saturation is the sum of base cations, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium, that are held onto the soil exchange sites, divided by the total cation exchange capacity expressed as a percentage. And that's the difference between looking at base sats as opposed to nutrient, which is in your soil, total nutrient, which is in your soil, or available nutrients. That's where the three differ. Optimum soil structure, as I said earlier, the calcium magnesium balance is so important. Because I come from an ag background, I'm happy to say that although in golf we're looking at a maximum of 6.5 calcium to 1 magnesium, in ag you can quite comfortably work with an 8-to-1 ratio of calcium to magnesium, quite comfortably, and that you'll find in very heavy soils. Sufficient free exchange capacity for other essential nutrient ions, which is vital in your cation exchange capacity, and also in your base saturation. Sufficient free exchange capacity to accommodate enough hydrogen ions to maintain an acid pH. And where there's room for that, the room for it is right there and right there. Mostly here though, but you'll find that if you can get your sodiums down to minimum, you can improve upon your hydrogen ions and keep that soil pH down. Right, when you have low cationic exchange capacity, and here we continue our debate and our discussion with greenkeepers who don't agree in base saturation. When you have low cationic exchange capacity, obviously that's in sandy soils, it actually becomes even more important. Okay, that's a debate. That is a big discussion, which you've got the concept now of negatively charged clay colloids hanging onto the positive ions. Some nutrients are anions. Okay. And as we know, like charges repel. So nitrate and phosphorus can easily leach if it has a negative charge, because it's not going to be held onto the clay colloid. A good USGA specification, I think this is something that we need to send out, Luke. I'm not prepared to send the whole presentation, but this is something I'm prepared to send out. So it'll take too much time to break it down now. How do you correct imbalances? All right. Here is a simple one. This is just working on calcium. And as we said earlier, calcium is the trucker of all the other elements. So you've got to have this right. I picked up a new customer a year and a half ago, and I'm not going to mention the club or the company that was working with them, but the 2017 soil analysis showed calcium in a perfect position, and it showed iron in a perfect position. Now, 4 years later, there is no calcium left, and the iron has gone through the roof. So we can see what has happened where the over-application of iron, it's created too many hydrogen ions, and the hydrogen ions have displaced the calcium, made the soil profile acidic, so that the calcium is being used at a rapid rate, and yes, it's going to stimulate growth, but it could also cause other problems, which they had before we corrected those imbalances. If we use pure chalk or limestone calcium carbonate as a pH corrector, we know that in calcium carbonate, it's only got 40% calcium. So to do the maths is not very difficult. And that's why I just left this slide up. I had a number of others that they would have taken a lot more calculating and a lot more time. But this is very simple to calculate and to work out. But this gives you an idea on what you need to do to replace if you are short of lime, if you are short of calcium, I should say. I'm a great advocate of gypsum. It's one of the best soil ameliorants around. And to give Oxyturf another punt, gypsum and Oxyturf do an amazing job in improving percolation, just to remind Luke of the word that he was searching for earlier. And you just get an incredible percolation improvement with the addition of gypsum. So if you have the correct pH and you do not need to increase pH, gypsum is always going to be the right product for you. And that'll give you your calcium without impacting on the pH. And that'll improve that percolation, which will assist in taking out sodiums and hydrogen ions if they're excessive. So looking at a soil analysis, we're not going to spend too much time on this. What I'm going to suggest is that if anybody wants me to see their soil analyses, they're more than welcome to send them to Luke, and I'll have a look at them and come back to you with a report and give you an idea of where Oxyturf can benefit you and what other adjustments you need to make chemically. Right. It's important to look at total nutrient levels as well as percentage of base saturation. So in your soil audit, especially the soil audit that you'll get from us, you'll get total nutrient levels, available nutrient levels, and you'll get cation exchange capacity. So you'll get all three. So they are a way of checking up on each other. So in other words, if you look at one and there's something that doesn't really tie up with what you've been applying, or with what you were expecting, or doesn't tie up with an old soil analysis, hopefully you've used the same laboratory over those years, because they all work on different parameters. So if there's something that doesn't tie up, you now have three forms of checking. And of course, here we go to Aidan's question. Given Oxyturf decomposes carbon compounds, is it not detrimental then to the humus we refer to support biological activity in the soils or sands? Great question. Increasing organic matter increases CEC. There is Aidan's answer, but let's break it down. We have 10 minutes. Let's break it down, because this is really important. And you see the Oxyturf logo, and I knew it was coming. And this is there because of that. And that ties in with Aidan's question there. As you break down plant organic matter, let's get our terminologies correct. Luke referred to it as thatch. I refer to it as plant organic matter. if Oxyturf is stimulating the microbes like we know it does, you will turn plant organic matter into soil organic matter. Now, I know all the STRI fans out there will be pulling their hair out. So let's just be quite clear. We at Soil Biology and Oxyturf refer to Thatch as plant organic matter, and what it's converted into becomes soil organic matter, which in turn becomes humus, which in turn, when it's broken down to its smallest particle size, is a colloid. What do colloids do for us? Colloids attract cations because colloids are negatively charged and they hang on to positively charged cations. So Aidan, I'm quite prepared to spend a good hour on that with you because I know you go into things in depth, but there, just to cover your question for those that are listening into this webinar, and that is going to be very well covered on October the 4th. And as
Hillary,
I said, that relates
Hillary,
to
just to give you a little heads up, I know you do. We have 10 minutes accumulatively. I really want a little bit of time at the end for some Q&A. Yeah. Okay. Super. Okay.
Okay. That's fine. Okay, so here we come to one of my bugbears in the industry, especially in the Gulf root zones, because salt is your biggest enemy. And I hope he's online. My new consultant, Craig Rodwell, some 21 years in the industry as a golf course manager and some 27 years in the industry, sent out a tweet on the weekend, and it was just incredible, the response that he got. And it's all salt related. What does salt do? Okay, we've got a slide at the end to show you what it does, but please, in your selection of products, remember what these salt indexes are all about. I know that I can be personally challenged on pot chloride because I'm a great fan of it, but I use it in very, very small amounts. And I use it for specific purposes, and I use it at specific times of the year when there cannot be an accumulation in the soil. So that's what you've got to bear in mind when you're looking at salt indexes. Which products can accumulate in the soil? And that was the magnificent response to Craig Rodwell's tweet over the weekend. Soil accumulation of salts. Here we come to osmosis. I bet every one of you can remember this from your year 8 biology. It's probably the only thing you ever remembered. And it's best remembered by the fact that water runs from a high place to a low place. So your rivers run from mountaintops down. Sorry, I was just checking the time. Sorry that I lost you there. And this is what osmosis is all about. And the osmotic capacity. I had a lot of notes that I wanted to add to this, but we'll just keep it brief and short. Let's get there now. So in osmosis, if you've got too much salt, if you've got a high salt index in your water, and your xylem just cannot carry that water into the plant, so you'll start getting a drought in the rhizosphere. The rhizosphere is that beautiful area where all exchange occurs on the root membrane. The rhizosphere is where it all happens with the biology, with the salts, and that is why we just don't like salt, because it's such an opposition It's such an opposition to 5 to 5. It's such an opposition to the critters. The critters don't like it. It dries out their little bodies. The plant membrane doesn't like it. And you end up killing the plant with osmosis. And as we saw there, the word osmotic potential is also known as solute potential. So osmotic potential is also known as solute potential. And what is the solute? The solute is the fertilizer that's in solution that you're hoping to do good to your plant. But what it does, it just sets back your plant till you can flush it out with some good healthy water. But I work with mains water of 8.2, and you saw Luke's table on the water earlier. Bicarbonates are a disaster for irrigation water. A lot of water in big cities is recycled. Before I arrived in the UK, I believe in 2004 or 2005, the London water was so recycled that the greenkeepers could not even use it. It was killing the turf. It was better to just let the turf dry out. So if water can have such an impact, imagine what's going on in your root zone. Imagine what's going on in this rhizosphere here. So I think we've labored that point enough. So high osmotic potential, and what did we learn that was? That was also solute potential. And solute potential reduces water uptake by plants, stresses plants, stresses and kills soil microbiology, and it increases irrigation requirements. But as I said, if you now have got very poor water quality, you're compounding the whole issue, and you waste added nutrients. In other words, if you're overloading the soil profile, you're just wasting those nutrients and doing harm to the plant. So as we draw to a conclusion, good soil chemistry, okay? Good soil chemistry. It's all about having correct nutrients in correct amounts and the correct ratios, and making sure that they are available to the plant. So how do we get the correct amounts? How do we get the correct ratios? The correct amounts are seen through soil analysis, and the correct ratios are seen through base saturation. So there are plenty of guidelines. And let's be honest, guys, you are on the ground every day. You'll see how many box clippings you're taking off. When I get somebody phone me up and say they're removing so many boxes, I just say to them, whoa, stop, slow down. We've just got to get that nutrition right, because overfeeding is just doing so much harm in terms of softening tissue and probably bringing on disease. And here we go. Some points to ponder in conclusion. High iron levels use up a lot of available cationic exchange capacity. And that golf course that I talked about earlier, the last 4 years before I started working there a year and a half ago, they were just pouring on the iron, pouring it on in a form that was not highly suitable. Remember that potassium has a single positive charge, and because of this, it's easily knocked off its exchange site and quickly used up. So I want you to picture that slide that I had on earlier. We don't have the time to go back to it now. That slide where we had the negatively charged colloids. The potassium, a single charge. So it's a product that's going to leach out very quickly. Don't go pouring on huge amounts of it in October, expecting it to last all the way till the end of March. It's absolutely impossible. And when you pour on a huge amount of it, you're just putting the plant under osmotic stress. Remember the word solute potential. And then remember that phosphorus forms a very stable compound with iron. So that's something to remember. And here's this question. Here's the trick question. Why are the ratios of total parts per million of nutrients different to the base saturation ratios of the same nutrients? So we'll see if anybody can answer that. And I see there's a question down below here. Can I take that one, Luke? Will Oxyturf reduce salinity? By the mere fact that you are improving percolation, yes, Oxyturf will reduce salinity. But we need to understand what is causing the salinity. When working with biology, when working with organics, when working with very low amounts of chemical inputs, we always have to be well prepared. We need to look at things 6 months to 3 months ahead of the time. And when we have a particular problem, we need to identify what is causing that problem. I had the good fortune to work with 100 hectares of sugarcane that had been totally flooded down in Zululand in the east coast of South Africa. And it took me a year to reduce the salinity of that field. Now I knew what had caused the problem and I knew what I had to do. So we need to always identify what has been the cause. Be good for guys to try and manage a steady increase in soil available carbon. Oh yes. Yeah, well done, Andrew. Thanks for that heads up. And yes, that's what we're expecting from Oxyturf as well. And by putting in humics and fulvics and organic feeds, we're always adding carbon into the whole picture. Thank you, Andrew. So why are the ratios of total ppms of nutrients different to the base saturation ratios of the same nutrients? Expect your answers by mail, but to put you out of your misery, the reason for that is base saturation is always worked out on a percentage of calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium.
Well, Hillary, thank you.
Hydrogen.
Thank you very much. That was very insightful. Wonderful to get a background in how nutrients can be used most efficiently and how they can be managed inside of the profile. I think that's incredibly insightful. So thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to the next webinar then, which would be on the 4th of October. Everyone that has attended this will indeed receive an invitation. So don't worry, you'll get that in your mail, and no doubt it'll be publicized on the social media as well. Before I go any further, I'd like to just open the floor for further questions. So if you have anything, I believe I'm able to also include your microphone. So if you'd like to speak to Hillary or myself or Carlos, please go ahead, just drop a little comment in the chat box, and we can include you in a discussion or just answer you if you just have a quick question. So while I'm waiting, or if there are any questions, okay.
Okay, can I just pick up on Andrew's heads up? I know where he's coming from. I know his passion as well for soil biology. His question is, can we remind ourselves to mention that soil humics are valuable in sand-based systems with low salts or clays, as they are up to 30 times better at holding onto both anions and cations. This is why it is critical to keep thatch degradation and root exudates at their optimum, thus increasing your CECs. Thank you, Andrew, for that heads up. And thank you for the advertising plug. And you do a fine job you do a fine work at your job. And yes, exudates are very important, but we'll be saving that for October the 4th. So just to give you an idea, if you read that question, Andy's typing on a mobile, so obviously it's not as accurate as he could have had it, but you can understand the gist of it. And what he's saying is that if you can get your exudates up, and if you can keep degrading your thatch, even your very weak sand-based systems with low CECs can hang on to cations and anions. And it is true, but it is a lot harder to achieve. But yes,
perfect. I see we're getting a lot of thank yous coming through. Thank you, Ignacio and Raul.
Thank you,
Thanks for also bringing a lot of your audience from Spain. It's been fantastic to see the turnout from Spain, actually. So thank you very much. Jerry, thank you. Very informative. Want to definitely hear more from Hillary. Well, Jerry, yeah, you'll certainly hear more from him in the next webinar and multiple webinars to come. And of course, he is available. You can get him through our website, through Soil Biology. You can email us, and I can put you in direct contact with him if you ever want to have, a one-on-one. Thanks so much. Aidan, thank you. What does it say? Can we discuss the relation between Oxyturf degradation of carbon compounds and our requirement for humus for positive biology? And that was connected actually to Aidan's previous question, of course.
We touched on that, and as I said, that will be covered in absolute detail. I make no apologies, guys. We're going to be raising the bar on October the 4th. It's not going to be as low level as today's. When we connect biology and chemistry together, we're really going to upgrade.
What else have we got here? Sorry, I missed the first part from Malcolm. No worries, Malcolm. There will be a recording available if you want to go over it. It was certainly very informative, so you can go over it in your own time as the recording goes out to everyone that's registered, I believe. Andres, is that right? Am I pronouncing it correct? Good job. Muchas gracias. And that's Carlos, Luisa from the Philippines. Like the recording will go out, Luisa. Some of the presentation is Hillary's IP, so he's keeping particular parts of it, but other parts of it will be released. Let's just see there. Yeah, listen, if there aren't any further technical questions that you want to address to Hillary or myself, thank you everyone for attending. It's just been a wonderful turnout. Really been fantastic hosting you. We look forward to engaging with you into the future. Please feel free to message us directly, comment and share our webinar invites with anyone else that you might feel would be interested in the webinar. Every shout out helps. So if you don't mind passing it on when you see the invite go on social media or the email invitation, please forward it on to the other greenkeepers that you may know that can benefit from this. We really are here to help greenkeepers. So that's our job. And our sole mission is to be a valuable contribution to to greenkeeping and groundsman management. And we want to do it in the biological manner in which we believe is the forward future thinking for greenkeepers. So thank you very much to everyone. If you want to say something further, Carlos.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell everybody that we'll be having an exhibition stand in Celtex very soon in the exhibition on the 3rd November, 4th November, and we hope to see you there as well to have a cappuccino with us in our stand and basically get to know everybody personally and talking a little bit. Thank you very much.
Can I just add to that? Thank you for that. That there will be a number of our other suppliers on the stand as well at different times during the 2 days.
Perfect.
So we can make arrangements for you to meet any of our
okay,
other
wonderful.
suppliers.
Take
well.
care. Ciao, ciao.
And,
okay.
All the best.
Okay. Thank you,
Ciao
guys.
for now.
Ciao for now.
Thank you, everybody. Ciao.
You can,
Bye-bye.
yeah, don't worry. It's,
Ciao.
I'm going to click stop
What do you
sharing
do?
now and ends session. Yes, end.
Because I've got to get busy with Paul.